Mr. Prashanth Nandella is the global CEO at FirstSource. He is responsible for the successful execution of our long-term growth plans through building an agile and resilient global delivery footprint, enabling digital transformation in line with our digital first, digital now approach, and developing new age capabilities while enhancing employee experience. Mr. Prashanth brings with him extensive insight on global operations, including a proven record of driving transformational change and building high performance teams without losing sight of customer needs. Mr. Prashanth has over 2.5 decades of experience in a variety of roles in Fortune 500 organizations. Before joining FirstSource, Mr. Prashanth was the center head for Cognizant Hyderabad and was an integral part of the evolution of business process services biz for the firm. An alumnus of IIT Madras and IIM Calcutta, Mr. Prashanth is a disruptive thought leader and is well known in the industry for his ability to design creative business solutions for clients with a digital mindset. He is also a passionate volunteer and actively participates in community services. He is a firm believer of self-sustaining community development programs that translate into better education, respectable earning opportunity, and holistic wellness of people in the communities that we live in. He holds an honorary position in various industry forums in Hyderabad. He's the vice president and the ex-com member of Hyderabad Software Enterprises Association. He's a Formula One racing and soccer enthusiast. Please welcome Mr. Prashanth Nandella.
So it's a very interesting topic, and I'm going to spend about 10 minutes covering a few aspects. I'm sure it's been beaten to death in terms of what's happening in this world. The topics is about careers in emerging technologies. In my view, technology is just an enabler of a change. So the business problem comes first. We need to identify where are there white spaces, what is the need for the R, and then try to solve those white spaces through technologies. And it's not like one technology solves all the problems. Neural networks, machine learning was invented and taught 20-25 years ago, right? Adoption only came now. It's because of various advancements in the surrounding ecosystem, which included edge computing, high-end, computing systems that we built in place and so on and so forth, right? So sometimes ideas are great, but ideas come to life only at a point in time. But innovation should not stop. Innovation goes on and on and on, and you can keep that in your garage, and when the ecosystem is live, then it's you can adopt it and take it to embrace that. So I'm going to give you a few examples of where I think the puck lies today, and it's a very commonly used term, but I think we all are designing products, and products have to be designed to meet an outcome or a purpose, which is the consumers who use those products. So I think what you're trying to do through innovation and design thinking is integral part of everything that we do from a product design standpoint. So I think principally more than technology, we need to focus on understanding customer sentiments, need, user experience, usability, and how do we sort of create products to meet those customer experience, right? Now, a lot of technologies can go into this. It could be your UX design, which is a key part of it, which I think all of us know, which is a big part of our product design ecosystem today. How well we design, how we deliver that services, how people consume it, how do you build analytics around it to drive insight on usability, enhancements, all of that stuff. So it's an embedded ecosystem where multiple technologies come together to solve product creation in usability in more long term. So that's one example where we are seeing a lot of our customers asking, I've done this in ABC way, but I want to be more effective. I want to compete with Bond Digital customers who are thinking very differently. How can I shift? And decision points are, can I upgrade what I have today or junk what I have and create something new? It's sometimes easier to create something new than trying to improvise on what you have today, because we are all sitting on a large legacy debt, which is huge, and to change that, it's going to take us a long time, right? So that's one example of where we think the puck is lying in terms of design and human-centric design UX experiences where they are. Because we're adopting so much on the digital space, clearly I think another thing that's making way is the whole aspect of digital marketing and content creation, right? And we've spoken that a little bit before. To deliver something meaningfully depends on where we are. Content is very important, and how content can be used and reused and manufactured and curated and presented becomes so much more important. It's not like we covered in the earlier summit. I think Dr. Balakrishnan covered this in terms of learner profiles. Different learner profiles exist in the ecosystem, and one solution does not cater to all those needs. So it's not just about content curation, it's content packaging, delivery, and adoption becomes so much important in this environment. So that's a big change. I think the world is going to change there. Self-learning is going to be the mode in future. Immersive learning is going to be the world in future. With all that embedded today, this whole content transformation and content management and the technologies linked to that are going to be more mainstream, right? Metaverse is going to be big in content space today, in learning space. People are going to learn significantly. There's going to be significant evolution of your VR machines, right? Today they call $600. There'll be a time it's going to be like $20, right? And that's going to change the way people buy, use, and manage this whole ecosystem going forward. So that's one. I think that's another big technology trend which is there, which has business applicability, and we'll see people can make careers, and innovation is going to happen in that space significantly, right? The next thing I think is we're all talking about digital, but there's a lot of paper in the world still, right? Hopefully there'll be a time when paper will go away and digital will come up, right? Just like our digital currency, right? We spoke about the whole demonetization program, getting everything back into mainstream, but currency still exists, right? Cash still exists in the ecosystem, but there'll be a time, there'll be a balance in terms of where we'll end up between digital and physical. And that's not just because people don't want to do it, it's because of user behavior. People, as generations change, adoption will increase. It's not because of government norms and regulations. People like to use a certain format. People still like to sign checks in the US, even for a $10 payment, right? It's ridiculous, right? That it has to change. So there's a lot of work happening, especially back of large financial services and healthcare businesses, on image recognition and clearly about and OCR engines that exist today, especially on regulated businesses which are about financial services and healthcare. I think that business is begging for innovation. The last count I had across the large 10 health plans in the United States, to process their documents, either enrollment or claims, there are a few 100,000 people doing this work, which I think can be eliminated with smart tech. This is after some tech adoption, and the people are human in the loop working around that. It's not like everybody is working manually. So there is a begging need for, I think, innovation in some of these spaces where how do we make engines more effective? And this is not a tech space, and everybody thinks technology are careers. This is the confluence of tech and business. You need to have some engines work well in certain domains for various reasons. Some of it could be technology-led reasons, because you have structured and unstructured documents. You have handwritten, non-handwritten documents. You have where the documents are scanned and sent to you. It depends on whether it's done on a phone, it's done on a scanner. All of those are nuances that we need to think through. But it's also based on ontology of business. If you're in the healthcare business where you're processing an healthcare claim, if you train the engine on a certain ontology, your ability to drive better efficacy is so much important. So there's a confluence between business and tech, and I think that business and tech confluence is what solves business problems. So that's a big area that we're seeing in terms of how people should never just focus on tech, but they should focus on tech in the context of a business so that they can make a difference to how things are solved for, right? That's a third piece, in my view, which is important. The fourth one, I'm going to cover one more after this, and then we can chat a little bit, is AI, right? ML and all the stuff that we know about. everybody says, old wine, new bottle. What has changed? How things happened? I think this is also begging to a lot of change, right? So adoption of AI is increased so much in everything that we do. Ability to predict things, predictive, right? How many times have we gone to an internet search today, and you in the web 2.0 space, hopefully in 3.0 you can set your own privacy settings so you don't get trolled, but you have ads coming up, people calling you, people chasing you, texting you that there's a buying behavior of an individual, so let me chase up for this, right? So the whole construct of using information to make sense of it, look at buying patterns, search patterns to drive things, I think becomes very important. And I'll give an example from my business in our industry. We are a large debt collector shop for pieces in the US. So a lot of these financial services firms, let's look at credit card industry, right? They issue cards. United States is a lot of credit economy, and a lot of people don't pay debt. So obviously the cards get delinquent, and then somebody has to chase and follow up, right? The traditional business is what they call and collect. Somebody is calling you and collecting money. So we used AI significantly to start building a digital collections platform. For some certain banks, it's white label completely. It's built for us, managed by us, but you think it's a bank doing it. They have not built it, they have not owned it, but we've built everything for them. Where we can figure out what sort of, based on demographics, profile, we profile people, age, location, buying behaviors, patterns, spend behaviors, ecosystem, social halos. Who can we call for what, when, how, to sort of make sure that we are able to connect to people better. So every call you make and don't connect to people is a waste of an effort, right? It's ideal cost in the whole ecosystem. So how do you sort of make sure you connect first? When you connect, what sort of proposals you need to provide to people for them to come back to mainstream debt, right? You want to get back people into mainstream credit history, right? You don't want them to be bankrupt, right? So you want to bring them back to mainstream. So should we then, once we say we engage on an email, for example, which is very good, or WhatsApp or text based on various profile, how can we give the power for them to decide their own plan? So they can configure their own plan on the fly. You don't have to do anything. So that configuration is done based on certain engines that work behind and say, what plan might this customer is likely to buy, likely to opt for. There's a lot of science happening behind, which is presenting those options. It's not like static 3 options, right? There are dynamic options that get presented. So that's how I think AI is getting embedded in a lot of things that we do today. I think from a business model and driving thing. The last thing, in my view, outside of the holy grail of metaverse, and I don't want to come there and talk more about it, is I think there's going to be a phenomenal adoption of Internet of Things in everything that we do. Every device is going to be smart. There is no way it's not going to be smart. And those smart devices are going to drive a lot of secular changes in the market, especially healthcare, especially cold storage, supply chain. These are going to be disrupted to a large extent. And there's a huge confluence again between how IoT is sort of managed between the domains that we are in today to drive innovation in that space. Today, Walmart knows exactly where their truck is at what point in time and how far is it from their store in certain geography. And they can figure out if there is a power breakdown in the truck, whether the goods that are there in that truck will get delivered in a good order to their store or no. They don't wait to ship and then they wait for people to sort of collect it and say it's all spoiled, so return it back, right? They are preventing the supply chain challenges from a business standpoint. It's a huge thing, right? It takes out friction from the business, cost from the system, makes sure customer experience is managed well. So many things happen around that, as an example, right? So there's so much happening in that space, and I think it's very important. Practically, I think no conversation on emerging technologies goes out without cloud. It's the way to go, totally. But there's a huge challenge. We do not know how to use cloud well. I think there is a lot of effort required, and we struggle a lot when we provision applications to customers in terms of how do we provision these applications, what is right private public cloud, how should your access architecture look like. So cloud engineering and architecture is going to be a big field as well in my view, which is going to help. I think that is a true horizontal component on everything that we're talking about. Everything is on cloud, data is on cloud, everything is on cloud today. So that aspect, I think, is something that we should is going to be green for a long period of time for us from a business standpoint. So that's the 5 specific areas and a horizontal component of cloud in my view, which I think is going to be the key for everything that we do going forward. And Shrikant, we've been talking. Whenever you do your change makers, you should have an NFT that tracks it and manages it. So that's the future. So we don't know how that's going to shape up, but I think I don't know if you've been reading the press. I'm sure all of you all. Everybody is sort of talking about metaverse. They're experimenting metaverse. We don't know how much of them it's going to be successful, but it's going to be. South Korea is investing about $200 million to make Seoul fully on Meta. You can experience the city without even going to the city. As an example. So governments are also adopting. It's just not industry bodies, right? So at some point in time, I think it's going to be real. GE dabbled a lot, not with 3.0, but they created the whole concept of digital twin, which is the fundamental concept of Meta, right, in terms of how it's being used. And they have a twin for everything. And they needed it for the engines, right? How do they overall engines manage engines? How do they manage turbines? How do they manage power plants? Right? They spend $1 billion or more just on the whole framework. So I think this is an interesting space. It's a confluence of, it's a transition of experiences from physical to digital. And that transition has to be carefully managed. There are a lot of security challenges, concerns around that in terms of what people are thinking, including social behaviors and patterns. But that's going to be an interesting space where I think, in my personal view, when applicability starts, you're going to have tremendous amounts of jobs coming that way, in my view, right? People can make careers out of it. It's not something that you can ignore. Everybody's investing, everybody's thinking, adoption, are there great use cases? Not yet, but people are trying, right? And I think Accenture, for example, said that they're going to hire 150,000 professionals. Everybody will be onboarded onto Meta. They call it N, I think. That's a studio. So they will come on board, manage, learn, train, onboard, everything on this platform. So that's the intent. I don't know when we'll go where, but everybody's dabbling in that space and we should not ignore it. And I think whatever we do, if we can create use cases on that technology stack, I think it'll be a great opportunity for people going forward. Sorry, that's all I had. I didn't have a presentation, a brief chat. Hopefully it made sense. Happy to take any questions if you have.
I have a couple of questions on AI. For example, if AI, ML, like low code, no code tools are coming. Similarly, on the AI also, no code AI, low code AI, those things are also coming. If that happens, do you anticipate like a BPO industry using the AI, those no code, low code tools? I mean, every application use those tools and I can create a solution. It becomes though I'm using AI, it's a kind of a BPO work. Do you think that's going to happen that way? That's question number one. Question number two, if these tools are becoming so efficient and all that, so future jobs, what I am thinking, the way people are explaining today, it's all about the domain. If I am a doctor, I can use any tool, technology tool, but I need to have domain knowledge. If I'm an agriculturist, I need to have agriculture background before I start building a solution. If I am a production engineer, a mechanical engineer, I should know in and out of a manufacturing plant so that I can think of building a solution. Totally. So that means the technologists per se may not have jobs. This is question number two. Then question number three, in a metaverse environment, if I go to a mall, and you say that it can be a digital twin or like Seoul, the South Korea experience. Suppose I go and walk around and pick up something which I like, and I wear the suit. If it is this thing, I can place an order. And is that going to be that simple? because the inventory, suppose if I buy 10 items from that store in that Meta mall, those 10 items will be replenished by this thing which will automatically done online, or how that
Yeah.
experience is going to be. Thank you.
Very, very, very pertinent and questions. I think I'll take one by one. The first one, I think, what we call, what the phenomenon that you just explained, Jay Garu, is what we call as citizen development. We're democratizing development. It's a phenomena already in place. We're embraced, the industry is embracing low code, no code significantly. And we've been running citizen development programs where we're giving the power of dev. We're skilling people, providing them platform access. We're helping them to ideate challenges and help solve their problems by building solution stacks in this, right? So we ran a program about 6 months back, and it's an industry use case. You can see it on UiPath's website that we co-branded this whole program and ran this. And we had about 500 colleagues who were not developers, actually building apps and solving business problems. Now, how many of them were implemented in real life? Because it's different from which business you are in. If you are a captive organization doing your own work, you can influence change. If you're working with an end customer, the customer should be able to embrace it. The challenge lies in two cons. The CIOs haven't fully bought into it. For them, they believe this is shadow IT, right? But it's going to change at some point in time, right? One. Two, today, even if you built applications standalone, forget about democratizing it through its traditional dev team on low code, no code, like Power Apps or anything else that you use today. Your smart Angular, smart developers don't want to come into this space and do it. They all believe that that's cool development. Why are you getting me to do this, right? So that mindset is in the people who want to also work, right? And that's where I think there's a huge talent story that we can build, where we can create a separate stream of talent who are willing to do this. Once they start doing this, I think it's a question of where the puck is going to lie and where it's going to solve for. Just on this topic, in my view, at least in nascency today, I think not everything can be built on low code, no code. There'll be certain things that we could do, but still mainstream app development is going to happen. And the reason it's going to happen is because they have deep embedded solution stacks with complex AI algorithms and linked with a lot of visualization, data management solution stacks that exist today that need to be built. So there's going to be both these will exist together. I think that's what's going to happen, right? On Meta, I think it's early. But we have at least in Cognizant, in my previous organization, we had a retail lab. And the retail lab essentially did almost what Meta did, but in 2.0. You could experience an item through virtual lab, try it onto you, see how it fits you. You can raise an inventory for that, let's say in any store, let's say in Nordstrom Rack or whatever you have, or your virtual store that you want to pick up. You can also check where else is this available. What are the models like this that's available wherever you want to have. Get the best price discovery and you can make that buy. Now the way it was structured is that the fulfillment of that was separated from your buying behavior, because then they said they built a supply chain rack in between, which essentially made sure that the central warehouses were directly tapped into to provide these outcomes. So I think in metaverse there will be I think a similar model will get adopted at some point in time. Depends on what is the end purpose and what you want to do. If you want a game today, this problem doesn't exist. When you want to buy, it exists. If you want to have coffee or drinks virtually, which is happening today, South Korea has already started that, right? There are communities now which are getting together, and there are clubs they call, like what you're calling your club. There are clubs which actually meet virtually on Meta, and actually they exchange notes, discuss conversations, engage, and all of that stuff. So I think there'll be a way to solve the supply chain issue, definitely. When it'll get solved, how it'll get solved is a question. But when retail sort of picks up, I think that's the true use case, right? Definitely for a business. But things like onboarding, training, engagement can still be hybrid, but it can be a lot on Meta.
Just one follow-on question, Prashanth. See, when IT came to India in 80s and 90s, literally it killed, other than the computer science, all the rest, mechanical, nobody
Totally.
wants to go, civil, nobody wants to go.
Totally.
All that happened. I am seeing that now it's going to reversal is going to happen. Computer science, core computer science may not be there, but more students may want to learn mechanical, civil, metallurgical, chemical, rather than the IT is a tool, right?
Totally.
So that reversal is likely to happen. That's my guess. Maybe I want to
So-
pick your brain.
So, and I made that point, and it's a very valid point, that it's a domain that you're in makes the difference. It's not about having a tech. Tech is only an enabler for a business, right? So, so there's going to be a different adoption of building specialty in a certain business area. It's not going to be generalist. If you're a general coder, I think in 20 years, there won't be a job for a general coder, right? Because you need to have coding done in a context of a business, and that's very important. Now, I take this circle of life story. There was a time, like you said, my favorite example is domain was there, but if you knew how to do something, if you knew the process, you could do anything, right? There was a time when there was domain. Then they said domain is great, but you need to know process. If you know process, you can do any domain. Then came the whole world of technology. If you know tech, you can do anything from a business standpoint, right? And in my view, the skills that people need to have in future would be they need to be understand innovation well, which is the process aspect of the business. They need to pick one or two domains that they really know and believe in and can be close and say that I can know this domain deep. If I can go 10, if you look at a process map, a BPMS chart, you can go from L1 to L5 easily. That's domain. It's not about knowing just at a high level what it is. And 3, you need to know some tech. It's not possible. So I think tech won't go away because that's going to be differentiate people in their jobs. So the combination of the 3 skills is what makes people, I think, brilliant. And I've heard so many examples in boardrooms where people say, I don't understand tech, so I can only tell you the business problems. It's for you to go solve for it. But I think that sort of behavior will not be tolerated very, very soon. Everybody needs to know a little bit of tech for sure. Likewise, every tech person needs to know domain. Otherwise, they're extinct.
I want to add something here for your question. Mechanical engineering or electrical engineering, automobile engineering, biology, biotechnology, we have all these domain-specific programs, majors. And then when electronics and all took the mainstream, we have seen the emergence of these cross-domain programs like mechatronics emerge. Of course, they did not take up much, but our program, I was into a biomedical engineering program, which was a cross-functional, cross-domain program. We had anatomy and physiology, biology, biochemistry, biological control systems. We learned computers in medicine, electronics. So it was a cross-functional, multidisciplinary program. And now, sir, this is to you. Maybe we should work on something called mechanical intelligence as a major. Because artificial intelligence, to my understanding, is all about creating the domain level artificial brains. We are biomimicking, we are creating those small brains with those knowledge packets and linking those knowledge packets to the neural engines. And right now that is happening at a level 0, level 1, and maybe level 1.5. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. So the without domain, there is no meaning of artificial intelligence.
Totally.
Right. So the other day, Usha and myself, we were looking at one of the article where it was more about gene libraries. And because that's more on the biotechnology coupled with AI, and she's been part of a drug design research during the COVID. There's a huge opportunity there, an untouched opportunity where biology, I think we can talk to even GRG in that space, and create those kind of, millions of libraries are really required specific to these organizations, because these are the fundamental building blocks for the dry labs. So if they're doing any kind of a drug design or some kind of a, the vaccine or some kind of a, the medicine. So till now the process is more like, we go to a lab, we try to test it on a animal or a rat and a mice, and then we move to the human trials. It's a lengthy process, but these gene expressions and the gene data being collected in volumes, that again, the simulation applies the AI, from those GANs and other models on these gene data, and then the dry lab itself, hardly in few months, we can get a result of how this chemical compound can actually, react with this kind of a gene. Because when it comes to the clinical trials and all, I was part of clinical trials for 9 months when I was doing my master's. I know how it works. So we need to, collect the, their geographical data, their racial data, if they're a Hispanic or from Asian origin. And when it comes to the drug delivery part in the clinical trials, all this gene and the DNA part is taken into, they collect the plasma and we ship it to, the primary investigation centers and all. All this process, this is only specific to one domain. Maybe GE was doing more at the mechanical side or more at the automobile domain. So every domain is being touched with this AI. And AI, if somebody is looking at it as just a technology, no, that is gone. So AI has value only when it is connected to one or two or three or multiple domains. Right now, it's more at the very initial stages where it is connected to one domain. So maybe programs like mechanical intelligence, biological or botanical intelligence, kind of a cross-disciplinary programs can, emerge where, we combine the strengths and, these guys actually, the part of the program, they can work on something like that. And we'll be very happy to collaborate on that front, sir. So,
Yeah. Actually, Radip Sudan was mentioning,
Sir?
apart from all those things, what educational institutions should do is develop the digital twins. Suppose if all the digital twins of all of us are available, in the clinical trials so far, they're all actually using the humans, animals, and all that. That step can be totally eliminated. Once you have the digital twin of human beings and also animals, then that step can be automated, and maybe at the end, maybe for 5% of the work. Today, Suchitra Ella was telling in the morning, though they had the vaccine in the first 1 or 2 months itself, but the rest of the clinical trials took that long. So I think if we have the digital twin of the human beings as well as animals, then that can be automated.
These are those, exactly, sir. So for the digital twinning, we need these building blocks to be invested. That's a prerequisite.
I think you should focus on digital twin, this thing as a intern opportunity to all your students. Looks like there's a big opportunity rather than metaverse.
Ask Anjali team, maybe your long-term plan.
Thank you. Thank you so much.